The next level, if you like, of leadership is at an organizational level, largely through trust management, where you have institutional leaders, you have clinical divisional leaders, directorate level leaders, or simply frontline leaders. And I'm going to emphasize this actually. Frontline leaders who are people who are just fine clinicians, who aren't interested in management, aren't necessarily interested in research, but are interested in bringing a forensic level of scrutiny to their diagnostics, demonstrating fantastic compassion with their patients and their families, and providing the right treatment. Now, you might find yourself asking, well, are those guys really leaders? Well, they are, because one of the jobs of a leader is to inspire the next generation to do things well. So I think that there is a huge place for people like that in our hospitals. We have professional leaders who are manifest in many senses through the colleges and specialist associations, people who focus on developing clinical standards and training. And the point I'm trying to make, I think, in all of this is that clinical leadership can take many forms. And because it takes many forms, it offers great opportunities across a whole spectrum of activities for the next generation to consider. You can be a leader in pure clinical excellence, as I've alluded to, a leader in clinical innovation, a leader in academic work, a leader in professional training and standards development, or you can move into the managerial arena and move over to the dark side, I suppose, like some people would say I have. But to be a successful and effective clinical leader, I think you have to have several attributes. One is you need to have a desire to develop the next generation. You need to have a system-wide view. True leaders aren't the people who control the boundaries of their own department, their own ward, their own specialty. They look outside those boundaries and look to see how they can interact with others in the service. They are prepared to take risks. And this is quite a big issue in the NHS. As the NHS emerges from a decade of a target-focused, risk-averse, financially driven, target-based culture, asking people to demonstrate a level of innovation which requires risk-taking at a local level is quite a big ask. And I think that's something that we as clinicians can help to develop. Good leaders will experiment with the delivery of medicine, as I've already alluded to, but they will never tamper with the science. So good leadership is about the application of evidence to new ways of delivery. So let's just think about venous thromboembolism. And if I want you to take one thing away, I think it's about how we apply some of the things that I've already mentioned to venous thromboembolism. It investigated through quite good research that in our hospitals, which have about 96 million admissions a year, that 38,000 people a year die from the effects of venous thromboembolism. That research also indicates that 25,000 of those deaths are avoidable with decent thromboprophylaxis. That means that we've got a similar number of avoidable deaths with venous thromboembolism as the full number of people who die from stroke in a year. So we have a big issue which resides within our own institutions, within our own real estate, within our own wards, under our own care, that we've known about for the last couple of decades. We haven't really grappled because it's kind of been in the too difficult box. Because four orthopedic surgeons in a room can't agree which type of thromboprophylaxis to use. Or it could equally be cardiac surgeons. I really want to pick on here. So I found myself thinking, how do we tackle this? One of the things that I've done since coming into post is to appoint medical directors at a regional level in each strategic health authority. And so there are 10 SHA medical directors. We met with the Academy of Medical Royal Colleges to see how we could work together to tackle one particular problem. And I'll just digress for a second. One of the reasons that I was keen to do that is that I've noticed over the last decade that the Royal College colleges and specialist associations have felt increasingly marginalised from the mainstream NHS. And I think that we need to bring the colleges back in to real mainstream NHS activity, not just accept commentary from them on the sidelines, but actually recognise that it's the colleges and specialist associations who provide the training of the next generation of doctors and who also set the professional standards. So it's absolutely crystal clear in my mind that they have to be a very key part of the mainstream NHS. And the question is how to do that. And I thought an attack on venous thromboembolism might be a way to demonstrate that that kind of practical working relationship is feasible and effective. So we agreed that on the evidence that had been presented in a number of quarters on venous thromboembolism, that was an area ripe for attack. So we've indicated in the operating framework for the NHS, which is a document which defines the focus of the NHS for the next year, that there will be an attack on venous thromboembolism and that professional leadership will be provided by the Academy of Medical Royal Colleges. We've ensured that some financial levers are put into the system to try and promote that. The first is there's a system called Commissioning for Quality and Innovation. For those of you that don't know what that is, I'll just explain it briefly. If you're a builder and you're putting up a new building, hospital, the people who have commissioned you to do that will pay you something like 90% of the building, and they will keep back a certain amount until they're absolutely sure the windows aren't going to fall out, the ceiling collapse, and then the last tranche of money is handed over. And that's pretty standard practice in the commercial sector. What the Commissioning for Quality and Innovation program tries to do is to identify specific areas between commissioners and providers where commissioners and providers agree there is an opportunity for improvement. Venous thromboembolism will be one. And people get paid for providing that service, but a small amount of money is held back, and the provider can claim that money if they meet certain criteria, and they're under no obligation to claim that money. So within the framework which we've just published, we are putting into the sequencing framework a national goal, if you like, that all hospitals will effectively risk assess all admissions for venous thromboembolism according to a national risk assessment tool, and that the extra money through the program will only become available if you risk assess at a minimum 90% of all your admissions. Now, there was quite a lot of pressure from some quarters to make that 100%. We haven't done that because we recognise some of the practical problems. But I think in relatively short order, we will be expecting that to be 100% in certain high-risk areas. The second thing that we're doing is trying to say that's fine, risk assess your patients, but the key thing about risk assessment is that it tells you whether somebody's low risk, high risk, or medium risk, and then you actually do something about it. So we're in the process now of writing into the national contracts that every NHS organisation that admits patients will conduct an audit, an annual audit, which they will share with their commissioners, which determines what proportion of patients who have been risk assessed actually get what they are meant to get.